Since the announcement of the Godzilla Minus One sequel from both Toho Studios and Takashi Yamazaki himself, and the obvious continuation of the legendary MonsterVerse following Godzilla and Kong the New Empire, several videos have been popping up across social media as to who could possibly be the next Godzilla foes in each respective sequel. And with that, in this video, I'm going to go over my theories as to who Godzilla's adversaries could be in each film. If you enjoy what you're seeing, I hope you'll subscribe here on YouTube and also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and X. I post regularly on there, and I try to keep you guys up to date on all the new Kaiju news, in addition to what I post on YouTube. Now, on to the video. In the case of the upcoming Godzilla Minus One sequel, Takashi Yamazaki has stated in a prior interview that of all of Godzilla's prior opponents, he'd love to reintroduce none other than the smog monster himself, Hedorah, which it's kind of an interesting choice given that Hedorah only appeared twice. Godzilla vs. Hedorah, his cameo in Godzilla Final Wars where he fought the sea monster Ebirah, and the little Godzilla Day tribute Suitmation shorts, which they've aired with all of their special events. And, I think this opens up a very interesting route that Hedorah could take where he'll finally be seen as maybe a serious monster, considering that Godzilla Minus One brought the Big G back to his original nuclear allegory from 1954, and given the fact that the late 60s and early 70s was a big time for pollution concerns, I think it opens up the route for, a more serious take on what's considered one of the more comedic Showa movies. And we have the possibility of, given the history of both Heisei Millennium's second films giving us kaiju like Biollante and Megaguirus, we could possibly see a new kaiju created by Toho. But, come to think of it, I'd rather just see Biollante. I mean, she's one of the most interesting kaiju Godzilla's ever faced, partially because she's born out of him. There's also the possibility that we could see a deep-sea kaiju born out of something similar to the deep-sea fish that pop up in Minus One before Godzilla appears. Now, do I think it's going to be a kaiju like Ebirah, or even for the sake of it, Manda? Probably not, only because their appearances are so limited, and in the grand scheme of things, they're really not widely recognized kaiju outside of the diehard fans. So personally, I think we'd probably either see, something like Biollante, like a new kaiju, or, the return of Hedorah, but in a more serious nature. Now, on to the MonsterVerse. As we've all seen with the most recent legendary MonsterVerse films, it's been very Kong-centered, and it's focused a lot on the Hollow Earth. Scar King obviously being a Kong-centered foe, and this could open the door for Legendary to bring in a more Godzilla-centered foe like Mechagodzilla was in GVK. But I would love nothing more. It would make my year to see arguably Godzilla's toughest opponent, Destroyer, make his return. And we've been reintroduced to the Oxygen Destroyer via King of the Monsters. So, what would a MonsterVerse Destroyer behave like? Would his aggregate form play out much in a similar vein to something, let's say, like a horde of xenomorphs from Aliens? Who knows? An interesting choice that I saw via Dangerville's video, which I'm sure you have all seen by this point, was that Orga would make his return. And this could be handled one of two ways. This could be a good time for them to try to introduce aliens into the MonsterVerse. Or would we bioengineer Orga to take the fight to the Titans as seen in the Godzilla and Kong novelization? I think the Hollow Earth is an untapped plethora of possible kaiju. The giant skeleton. We don't know what the hell Titanus Doug is. And there's so many of these, little here and there species that very well could wind up turning into some kaiju that Godzilla has to face off against. There's a whole other world that we have to contend with now. So how would Legendary approach this, given that it seems like they've put a lot of stock into doing the Hollow Earth route now? Would we get something new like Shimo or Scar King were? Personally, I think Orga's return is unlikely. As the next film could end the quote-unquote trilogy and the focus on the Hollow Earth in more recent releases, I'd be willing to hedge a bet that we're probably going to see a Titan born out of the Hollow Earth, or hopefully my pick, Destroyer. And with that, I'm going to give you guys my top 3 picks of who I want to see in both films.